Is your garden looking great, but there's just one problem? Groundhogs. These furry little critters can quickly turn your garden dreams into a disaster. But don't worry, today we're sharing some effective strategies to keep groundhogs away and protect your beautiful plants. You know that feeling you get when you walk outside on a bright, sunny morning, coffee in hand, and take in the sight of all your hard work. Rows of vibrant green leaves, colorful buds promising a bountiful harvest, the sweet smell of herbs carried on the breeze. It's pure joy. But then you spot it. A patch of your prize-winning lettuce nibbled to the ground. Groundhogs. Groundhogs love to dig, burrow, and feast on your garden crops. If you're a beginner gardener, this can feel like a real setback. But with the right approach, you can keep these pesky animals at bay and ensure your garden stays safe and thriving. First, let's talk about barriers. Now, when it comes to keeping those mischievous groundhogs out of your garden, a simple fence just won't do. They're master diggers, these little guys, so we need to outsmart them. Imagine this: a sturdy, beautiful fence, maybe white or a natural wood stain, surrounding your garden like a protective hug. It's not just about looks, though. This fence needs to be at least 2 to 3 feet tall, standing strong and proud. But here's the secret sauce. We're taking it underground. Yep, you heard that right. We're burying that fence about 6 inches deep, creating an underground barrier that will make those groundhogs think twice about tunneling under. And for an extra layer of protection, we're going to angle the bottom of the fence outwards, away from the garden. It's like giving them a gentle nudge back to their own neck of the woods. Think of it like building a fortress for your vegetables. A strong, secure fence will give you peace of mind, knowing your hard work is protected. Plus, a well-built fence can add so much charm and character to your garden. It's a win-win. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds like a lot of work. And you know what? You're right. It's definitely an investment of time and effort. But trust me, the satisfaction of seeing those groundhogs outsmarted and your garden thriving? Priceless. Plus, imagine the stories you'll tell. Gather your friends and family around the dinner table, sharing fresh, homegrown veggies from your very own fortress garden. They'll be so impressed with your ingenuity and determination. And you'll be able to enjoy the fruits and vegetables of your labor, knowing you outsmarted those pesky groundhogs. So grab your gloves, fire up that post hole digger, and let's get to work. We're building a fortress, and those groundhogs don't stand a chance. All right, now that we've got our fortress walls up, let's talk about some natural ways to keep those groundhogs at bay. Remember, these little critters rely heavily on their sense of smell. It's how they navigate, find food, and avoid things they don't like. So we're going to use that to our advantage. First up, let's talk about cayenne pepper. Groundhogs dislike spice, so sprinkle cayenne pepper around your garden. Next, garlic powder. Its pungent aroma sends groundhogs running. Sprinkle it around your plants and let the garlic work its magic. Lastly, castor oil. Groundhogs have a strong aversion to its smell. Mix it with water and spray around your garden to create an invisible barrier. These natural repellents are safe for your plants, family, and the environment. Gardening is all about experimenting and finding what works best for you and your little piece of paradise. Now let's talk about the fun part, choosing what to plant. Did you know that some plants are naturally resistant to groundhogs? It's true. Just like we have our favorite foods, groundhogs have theirs too. And by strategically planting crops that they tend to avoid, we can create a garden that's both beautiful and groundhog deterrent. Think of it like this. We're not just growing a garden, we're creating a culinary landscape that's appealing to us, but not so much to those pesky critters. It's all about finding that perfect balance. So what are some of these magical groundhog-resistant plants? Well, let's start with the allium family. Garlic, onions, chives, leeks. These pungent powerhouses are not only delicious additions to our kitchens, but also natural groundhog repellents. Their strong aroma is enough to make a groundhog turn tail and head for the hills. Next up, we have herbs: lavender, rosemary, thyme, sage. These fragrant beauties not only add beauty and aroma to our gardens, but also deter groundhogs with their potent scents. Imagine a border of lavender lining your garden, its purple blooms swaying in the breeze while simultaneously keeping those pesky critters at bay. And let's not forget about tomatoes. These juicy, vibrant fruits are a staple in many gardens, and luckily for us, groundhogs tend to steer clear. So plant those tomato plants with confidence, knowing you're less likely to find them nibbled to the ground. Now, I know it's not always possible to plant an entire garden of groundhog-resistant crops, but by incorporating a few of these strategic plants, especially around the perimeter and near vulnerable crops, we can create a natural deterrent that will make those groundhogs think twice about setting up camp in our gardens. Remember, gardening is all about trial and error. Don't be afraid to experiment with different plant combinations and see what works best in your area. And who knows, you might even discover a new favorite vegetable or herb along the way. All right, we've talked about barriers, repellents, and strategic planting. Now let's talk about something equally important, keeping our gardens clean and free of attractants. Think of it like this. We wouldn't leave a plate of freshly baked cookies unattended on the counter, would we? Well, the same principle applies to our gardens. Groundhogs are opportunistic eaters, and they're drawn to easy meals. So it's up to us to remove any temptations that might entice them to pay our gardens an unwelcome visit. First and foremost, let's talk about fallen fruit and vegetables. Those overripe tomatoes, dropped apples, and stray zucchini might seem harmless, but to a hungry groundhog, they're like a beacon of deliciousness. So make it a habit to regularly patrol your garden and remove any fallen produce. Next, let's address those compost piles. Now, I love a good compost pile as much as the next gardener, but it's important to keep them a safe distance from our gardens. Compost bins can attract all sorts of critters, including groundhogs, so it's best to keep them as far away from our precious plants as possible. And finally, let's talk about general garden hygiene. Just like we keep our homes tidy, we need to do the same for our gardens. Regularly weeding, trimming back overgrown plants, and removing debris will not only make our gardens look their best, but also make them less appealing to groundhogs. Think of it like this. A clean and tidy garden is a happy and healthy garden. By removing attractants and keeping things neat and organized, we're creating an environment that's less hospitable to groundhogs and more conducive to thriving plants. Remember, gardening is an ongoing process, and maintaining a clean and tidy garden is an important part of that journey. But trust me, the rewards of a healthy, productive, and groundhog-free garden are well worth the effort. Now, I know sometimes, despite our best efforts, those persistent little groundhogs still find a way into our gardens. And while it can be frustrating, it's important to remember that they're just trying to survive, just like us. So, if you find yourself facing a particularly stubborn groundhog, let's talk about some humane solutions. First and foremost, it's important to avoid using any harmful traps or poisons. Not only are these methods inhumane, but they can also be dangerous to other animals and even children. We want to find a solution that's safe for everyone involved. One option is to contact your local animal control or wildlife rescue organization. They often have experience dealing with groundhogs and can safely and humanely trap and relocate them to a more suitable habitat. It's like giving them a one-way ticket to a new and improved home. If you're feeling adventurous and want to try relocating the groundhog yourself, there are humane traps available at most garden centers and hardware stores. These traps are designed to capture the groundhog without causing them any harm. Once you've trapped the groundhog, it's important to relocate them far away from your property, at least 5 miles to prevent them from finding their way back. Look for a wooded area or field where they can establish a new home without causing any trouble. Remember, relocating a groundhog should always be a last resort. It's important to try other deterrent methods first, like those we've already discussed. But if you do need to relocate a groundhog, do so with care and compassion. And who knows, maybe one day you'll spot that same groundhog thriving in its new home, far away from your garden, and you can smile, knowing you played a part in giving it a second chance. So there you have it, fellow gardeners. Whether it's installing a fence, using repellents, or planting resistant crops, there are plenty of strategies to keep groundhogs out of your garden. You've got this. Remember, gardening is all about trial and error, and with a little patience and persistence, you'll have a thriving garden that's safe from groundhogs. Happy gardening, and see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more gardening tips and tricks.